Hey everybody, Nick here. Just time for sort of a quick rant today. As you might know, I'm kind of on this obsessive lens quest, always trying to find sort of my perfect lenses or what is my ideal set for the broadest possible range of conditions. And you know, I've got a few lenses that I use pretty frequently. I shoot on a set of Nisi Athena primes, which are really good. They're clean, they're reasonably fast at t1.8. But I also really like faster lenses when possible. So right now, I'm shooting on the Canon 50mm RF L 1.2, right? So it's an f1.2 lens. Canon's previous 1.2 stills lens translated to a T1.3, and so I assume this is also pretty much a T1.3 lens. But there's very little full format glass that's that fast. There are quite a number of 50mm lenses, somewhere between 45 and 50, that claim to be, you know, f0.95, or they are f0.95. They end up measuring around a T1. You know, and that's cool, but they generally only come in right about that focal length. I know Laowa makes a 35 T1 as well, or f0.95 as well. But those lenses also vignette super hard, like 3 stops between the center and the corners. And they're not as sharp, the resolution isn't quite as high, and they're gonna have a lot more aberrations. So there's a lens set coming out that I'm extremely interested in, and it was at NAB and I totally walked right by it. What I'm talking about is the DZOFilm Arles, or Arles, or Arles, depending on how you want to pronounce it. My French is probably awful, but I think in the French it's pronounced Arles. It's the town Vincent van Gogh did some of his most famous work in. Anyway, and this is a T1.4 full frame set. They say they're going to have an entire set, basically with 10 focal lengths. At NAB, they showed a 25, 35, 50, 75, and 100. And there's someone in Hong Kong who managed to get his hands on a 40mm T1.5. I assume he either has a pre-existing relationship with DZOFilm or is somehow involved with the company, because they didn't even announce that focal length, and yet he has been able to test with it. And he's not making it up. He's also posted photos of the lens, and it is indeed part of that set. But at NAB, they announced the focal lengths I mentioned earlier, and nobody has done any coverage of it except News Shooter, and I think like a German site did a quick article. And I know CVP is going to in the next couple of days, and I'm sure more coverage will come rolling in. DZOFilm is no stranger to releasing products with good influencer and social backing. But why I am so extremely interested in these lenses, not only does DZO have a great track record and reputation for good lenses that are and do what they claim to be, but you can just look at the lenses and see that they are a little bit different from other offerings. So I'm not an optical engineer and I don't know everything about these things, but from my understanding, the size of the front element is usually directly related to vignetting. The front element is, as I understand it, the most responsible for vignetting. And if you want to combat that, you need to increase the size of that front element. And if you look at these lenses, every single one has a really large front element. And DZO is also claiming in their early marketing language that these lenses have really high resolution in addition to their good coverage. So why is that all so exciting? Well, on full frame, 36 by 24, or in the case of the V-Raptor VistaVision sensor, about 21.6 by 41 by 21-ish. When you get that fast, T1.4, 1314, now your depth of field is essentially the same as you will get on IMAX cameras shooting with some of the fastest glass made for those formats, which is about T2.8. You're not going to find much faster there, certainly not in a full set like the Arles lenses are. Arles lenses. I'll just say Arles so I don't sound like I'm trying too hard to speak French. You don't find a full set at that speed with that kind of resolution, with that kind of field illumination, with what I am sure is going to be some pretty clean apochromatic design. That just doesn't exist anywhere. And so what makes me so excited is that with a set like this, you can essentially shoot the IMAX look with standard full frame cameras. And to me, that is extraordinarily exciting. For those of you who don't go super into the weeds about this stuff, essentially the size of a format for a given field of view and a given F number is directly related to depth of field. So if I shoot a 35mm lens that's an f1.8 on Super 35, that would be like shooting a 50mm lens on full frame, but at a slower f-stop, like T2.4-ish. So let me make that less ridiculous an example. Okay, if I have two T2.8 lenses, 2.8, let's go 2.8. The 35 on the Super 35 format, and then the 50 on the full frame format, they'll have the exact same field of view, but the full frame one will have one stop equivalent more depth of field. The background will be more blurred by that. I can do some demos of this later, but this is 100% true. It's essentially between Super 35 and full frame, you get like one stop difference. If you go from full frame up to IMAX, I think it's close to 2 stops difference. So if you went from 2.8, that IMAX 2.8 lens, that's like a 1.4 lens on full frame. And so having a T1.4 set that has really good resolution, has really good field illumination, not crazy hard vignetting on the corners, has really good optical performance, that's gonna give filmmakers on full frame cameras who don't have access to Alexa 65s or actual 65, 70mm film or IMAX cameras, the ability to shoot that look. So that's why I'm so extremely excited about these lenses. And you might say, hey, you know, there's a bunch of T1.5 sets out there, Nick. Why aren't you freaking out about those? That's true, those exist. And some of those are really good, but some of them are not so really good. And when you get that fast, every 1/10 of a T-stop makes quite a large difference. So from T2.8 to T2 is one stop. So it's a 0.8 that gets you a stop. But then the next stop is from T2 to T1.4. That's only 0.6. And then from T1.4, I think, to T1 is another stop. So it's only 0.4. So every little bit there, it's kind of logarithmic. You start bunching up towards the end. Makes a difference. And from the limited test footage I've seen from that gentleman in Hong Kong who got his hands on the 40mm, these lenses are extraordinary. So I will be paying a lot more attention to this set, and I'm extremely interested to see what they can do. So watch this space. I'm gonna try and get my greedy little hands on a demo set as soon as I can. The latest that would be, at least for demo purposes, I'm gonna see if I can demo them in person at Cinegear coming up next month. But I'm in contact with DZOFilm and hoping I might be able to see a demo lens or 2 or 3 in the nearer future. And if so, I'll give you lots more practical demos on all the stuff I was just ranting about. But either way, I think it's a really exciting time to be a filmmaker. Someone in the comments recently said, in his opinion, lens design peaked decades ago, and there's nothing new under the sun. And I completely and wholeheartedly disagree with that. And this offering by DZOFilm is merely one example of that. But there are dozens I could cite really quickly off the top of my head. But regardless, there is a lot of really cool stuff in terms of design and in terms of accessibility to filmmakers right now. And that makes me excited. That makes me want to go out and create. And I hope it's the same for all of you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Okay.